All right, welcome to Who Runs the Commonwealth, where we compare Virginia Tech, UVA, and JMU football for the 2025 season and beyond. Just going to have a comparison for each week's between each school so we can determine who runs the Commonwealth at the end of the year. My name is Austin Logan. This is Zach Kinney, and we also have Luke Howard, who's going to be our Virginia Tech beat reporter, I guess.
Super
So
fan.
we're three fans of each school. Yeah, super fans, of course. And just wanted to compare and contrast our schools, especially since they're all in such close relation. Don't really play each other. Well, JMU doesn't really play Virginia Tech and UVA all that much. So I think it's always a conversation of who is running the Commonwealth each year, who's the best football team.
And yeah,
I've listened to a couple podcasts and go ahead.
I was gonna say yeah, and like I'm the UVA guy, Austin's JMU, Luke's Virginia Tech. Luke could make it for this pod, but he'll be on the future ones going forward. So we're gonna do it without him today, but we'll still dive into a little bit of Virginia Tech stuff. And yeah, but do you want to go ahead and say like why you're a JMU super fan, your background with that?
Yeah, so actually, I grew up a Virginia Tech fan growing up near Blacksburg, but I went to JMU when they were going from FCS to FBS. I kind of caught the middle or the back end of FCS and the beginning of FBS. Graduated in 2021 and just been to probably most of the games as a student. Yeah, I think I've also worked in the athletic department there as like an intern. So just kind of getting like really immersed in the whole JMU culture is why I turned into a super fan, I guess.
hmm
Zach, go ahead.
Yeah, so my dad went to UVA, so I was raised as like a diehard super fan. We've had season tickets since before I was even born. So I've been going to games since I was a toddler, basically. I haven't missed many games in the like 21, 22 years I've been going to games. So I'm a pretty diehard UVA fan, but also went to JMU for school. That's how Austin and I know each other. And so definitely have a background with JMU football because we were there. They were dominant. College game day came twice to Harrisonburg, so I definitely understand the pride and tradition of JMU and definitely respect him as a school. And then Luke can speak for himself when he's on, but I know him and Austin are both from around or near Blacksburg in the Roanoke area, and he's a diehard Hokie, so it'll be good to get his insights when he is able to join us for the next pod. But yeah, that's our backgrounds. And then today on this pod, just an overview. We're going to go over week one games, and we'll get into some stuff going on, not just in the Commonwealth, but around the country, and then also do some season outlook. We won't spend too much time on it, but go game by game, record predictions for JMU and UVA, and then for VodTech, I think, because Luke can't make it. We'll just do some, you can either breeze through it or just like give like our record predictions, and he can kind of speak on his own season predictions when he can join. But yeah, I think that's the overview for what we're going to cover today.
Yeah, for this schedule overview, let's just talk about a couple games in depth, like the biggest games coming up. Obviously, for Virginia Tech, it's the South Carolina, I think, is probably their biggest game, but we'll get into that.
Yep.
You want to do a week one preview for jump right into that for we can start with UVA because they do play a JMU conference opponent, Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, we can jump right into that. So yeah, we open at home, Scott Stadium with Coastal Carolina. UVA obviously coming off a disappointing 5-7 season, hit the transfer portal really hard. So there's a little bit of optimism in Charlottesville this year. And then Coastal, their level of how they are viewed in their conference in the country, they have a lot of turnover in terms of players leaving and whatnot, especially with the transfer portal. But they actually are also have a little bit of optimism and improving the talent in their program. They also had a disappointing season last year, wasn't up to their standard after many successful years. After their quarterback, McCall, transferred to NC State, they kind of took a step back, but they got a new transfer quarterback from NC State this year that many are excited about. And so Coastal think their fan base and some of the media think they'll definitely improve from last year. And then also UVA played at Coastal last year. We won 43-24 in a pretty convincing game. Even that score doesn't do it justice. UVA pretty much dominated start to finish. So given that, and given that UVA seems to have improved a lot in the transfer portal and getting an upgrade in quarterback with the transfer of Chandler Morris replacing Anthony Calandria, who was disappointing last year, I think UVA should definitely have the edge. Last I looked, they were 12.5 point favorites, which honestly is surprising to me. I thought it'd be a lot larger than that, considering we won by 19 on the road last year. And this one's at home. But I do think Coastal is an improved team. They'll come in with a chip on their shoulder after losing last year. So, and it's the first game, right? Got a lot of transfers, a lot of new faces. So it's going to be hard to get that to gel all perfectly week one. So you never know what can happen. But I'm going to make a prediction now. I think UVA will cover that spread. I see them winning by 21, 3 touchdowns. So I'll keep the score similar to last year's score and go 42-21 UVA.
Nice. Yeah, I like that prediction. And you hit like a lot of good points. Coastal Carolina, I think they are always optimistic about their program and they kind of typically finish within the same, basically. Yeah, they lost Grayson McCall to where did Grayson McCall go to? I can't remember.
He
What
went
I
to
feel like
NC
it
he
was,
went to NC State and
yeah,
then
yeah.
tore his ACL in the opening game.
Right. He is
Or he
back
got
as
concussed, I
their
forget, but it was bad.
yeah, he's been concussed a few times.
Yeah.
But he is back at Coastal Carolina actually. He's going to be one of the coaches.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't
Um,
know that.
So yeah, no, yeah, it is pretty cool. JMU actually has something similar. Their linebacker from last year, Jacob Dobbs, is going to be a linebackers coach. So not sure when that started. Usually there's like a time frame where you can't coach because they were like on the teams, so they kind of knew each player. But it is kind of a cool mix up. And yeah, I think you'd have to really believe in Coastal Carolina. You'd have to really believe in the transfer quarterback, which is always kind of hit or miss, I think.
Hmm.
So it depends on like the system, all that fun stuff.
Exactly.
And just because they don't really have a ton of talent outside of that, typically it is like driver's seat quarterback is how Coastal Carolina is going to go. But yeah, I agree. I'm pretty surprised. I think we've talked about this like preseason rankings. Virginia is much lower in the ACC standings than you would think, which is pretty surprising. I was surprising because of all the transfers they brought in. But I think at the same time, the ACC and preseason rankings don't mean much. I think we can all agree on that.
Definitely.
But ACC is pretty tight at the middle to the bottom,
Mm.
or upper, bottom, lower middle, where you can just place any team there. It's kind of a toss-up game each week. But yeah, it combined
Yeah,
score. Yeah,
that's crazy.
yeah, it's pretty crazy. The coaches I actually just heard the other day, Kurt Signetti, who's at Indiana now, they had some kind of beef the head coaches, so they were really trying to run up the score, I think. And that was at Sunbelt Media Days, is when that kind of popped up, which is crazy.
Out of all things.
And it was yeah, and it's like a team that you beat like 100-14. So it's like, what's your beef with them? You know what I mean? But
Hmm.
yeah, I think score prediction. I really like the 42-14. I think I don't know, it could be a little bit closer, but I think that's probably a safe bet. I think they cover for sure. Or you said 42-21.
Yeah, 42-21.
I think they're going to be relying on a lot of transfers, like plenty of schools, and especially I think UVA has some returning production, which I think has like a little more or a little less gelling. I think it'll be a tune-up game for UVA, where I think it'll be a figuring it out game for Coastal Carolina. So I think UVA pulls ahead by a good bit.
Yep, definitely agree with that.
I definitely have them winning that. You gonna hit the Virginia Tech week one since
Yeah.
we're all right.
Yeah, so Virginia Tech gets to play South Carolina, an opening game. I think it's a Monday night game in Atlanta, so it's a neutral site. So it's always exciting having an ACC SEC matchup early on in the season. Normally those are dominated by the SEC, and going into this game, South Carolina has been kind of like a Cinderella with the media. A lot of people are hyping them up. They're getting a lot of attention, especially as like a dark horse in the playoff potentially. And the main reason for that is Lenore Sellers, the returning quarterback. Dude's a stud. And I'm also salty because he was committed to UVA and then Bronco Mendenhall retired and he left. So that's always going to stick with me. But no, I like rooting for him. He's legit, dual threat guy. He's probably going to be, I think he's the second best quarterback in the country behind Cade, or third best behind Cade Klubnik and Arch Manning. So I think he's legit. And South Carolina also returns a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball. They also lost a lot too. A couple guys in the NFL that I think people are overlooking in terms of them rebuilding their defense. But I think Shane Beamer's entering his fourth year now, fourth or fifth year. And so he's finally getting the depth that's needed. Virginia Tech, South Carolina opening up. Spoke already a little bit on Lenore Sellers. But yeah, they're bringing back a lot of depth. Shane Beamer in his fourth year, I believe. So they're finally getting the SEC talent depth in the second and third levels of the team. And so I think they're just building. I don't think they're as good as the media is making them out to be just because they did lose a lot of production last year on both sides of the ball, and that's going overlooked. But I still think they're a deep SEC team that can compete at the high end. They also have a brutal schedule this year. So even if they go 7-5, I think they're probably like the best 7-5 team in the country. I think they're in the ACC. They'd be going 11-1, 10-2 at worst. And then on the Virginia Tech side of things, going into Brent Pry's fourth year, he is a little on the hot seat. They had a disappointing season last year after being kind of the ACC media darlings, kind of a ACC dark horse team going into last year. I think Brent Pry's like, I should probably know this if I'm on a freaking podcast, but I think he's like 2-14 in one possession games. And so just shows that Tech's been like right there the past couple years. to get over the hump, but haven't been able to do it. They've dealt with a lot of injuries at the quarterback position. And so a lot of people think they're just a few lack of injuries or a few turnovers here, they're away from turning the corner, being an 8-9 win team. So that's definitely on the table. Kyron Drones is back at quarterback. He's getting healthy. Like UVA, Tech also had a really good transfer portal class, filling in some holes, and Tech is deep on the defensive line in the secondary like they always are. And so I expect them to come out for the South Carolina game pretty pumped up, fired up to try and right some of these wrongs that have gone wrong the past few years. But with that said, let me pull up the spread because now I'm curious. Damn, South Carolina's only favored by 7.5, basically a touchdown. That's been, they're probably going to have to get some kinks rolled out week one. Also, I was wrong. It's not a Monday night game. It's a Sunday afternoon game, 3 o'clock. That's cool. But yeah, so I guess I kind of rambled there. But from a prediction standpoint, I think Tech can compete early on in the first half. I don't think South Carolina is going to just dominate from start to finish. But I do think once the second half starts, South Carolina's depth and talent is just going to lean on Virginia Tech, wear them down. And so, yeah, I think I'm going to take South Carolina 38-17. But I think that early on, I could see halftime being like 17-14, 17-17, and then South Carolina just dominating the second half. So, yeah, I'm going to go 38-17 South Carolina, but I do think Tech will put up a good fight and impress some people in the first half.
Yeah, definitely agree. They're 1-12 in one score games
Damn.
with under their
Yeah.
coach. Yeah, crazy. Yeah, yeah. I think you hit everything. They're the only thing I would say is like they also have a new offensive line coach, which I think will improve the team overall. They brought in offensive line coach from West Virginia, who also brought a couple transfers with him. One highly rated younger guy who I don't think is going to be immediately starting, but will provide some depth, of course, and then one immediate starter at left guard. Actually, I'm not sure if they're planning on putting him at left guard. I think he was a guard. They might be putting him at tackle. I think he bounces back and forth. I think they're pretty comfortable with him doing that. Being probably one of the best ACC linemen this year is a prediction, I guess.
Hmm.
I'm not sure. I don't watch a lot of West Virginia games, so I couldn't say for sure. But I know they are very excited about him. And I think that'll be pretty critical with the South Carolina defense. And they have a very strong transfer class, especially in the running back room. They have a stable of guys, but Harrison Stewart is coming from Bowling Green. I think Luke would be honored that we mentioned him. He's super excited about him replacing Tootin that went to the NFL last year. Just 5'9", 220, electric kind of guy. All the wheels, everything. So yeah, I agree. I think they definitely keep it close till halftime just because of the juice that playing Shane Beamer is going to bring. Virginia Tech, that's pretty important for Virginia Tech. But I also know it's important for Shane Beamer too. He mentioned it in the SEC Netflix thing here is kind of his dad. So I'm not sure how well that translates to the team, his personal vendetta against Virginia Tech, but I don't want to say vendetta. I mean, he's just trying to get at, I think we can all understand that. But yeah, I think it'd be I think it'd be pretty ridiculous to say Virginia Tech wins this. Maybe they take the juice all the way to the fourth quarter, but I don't think that would be very Virginia Tech of them if they did. So
Right.
if they did win, I think it would say good things about them. Obviously, create a lot of national media hype for them, but I think that would also say, hey, maybe South Carolina is not going to be that great this year. So I would love to see them win because I think the SEC fatigue is for real for everybody.
Yep.
Not actively in the SEC or winning the SEC, the same six teams every year. But sorry, I don't want to just hate on the SEC for the whole podcast. But yeah, I think South Carolina pulls away at the end. I do think they keep it close, but I don't think Kyron Drones has got enough weapons. They have a stud wide receiver transfer Green, but
I
I don't
think they're
think that's
good.
going to
They
be the
got
answer.
two guys with the last name Green. One guy's returning, one guy's new. And the dude last year was sick, I remember. I think they got a few weapons, but you're right. They're not like terribly deep there. They could use some help.
Yeah, a lot of transfers. And you're right. They brought in obviously a ton of defensive linemen, mostly from the FCS, I think, which is a good sign. I think high production is where kind of JMU kind of goes to for the transfer portal too. So I think that the top tier of the FCS and the bottom tier of the FBS is, I would say the FCS probably is better. I think you have to have something, a little something to play at a high level at whatever conference. So to be really good at a lower conference, I think just kind of shows that you have a little something extra that can let you compete anywhere. And maybe they're just spot players, maybe they're just backups kind of thing.
Hmm.
That would be even better for their depth. And then, like you said, the cornerback transfer class is pretty good. They lost everybody in the secondary. Well, the cornerbacks, I know for sure. I'm not sure about the safeties. Actually, they brought in a bunch of safeties too, actually, from, again, FCS, I know, or not FCS, but, a lower tier league. Could be from a few different schools. But the cornerbacks, I know they really hand selected guys, like a guy from Hawaii. So I think they're going to be bullish on their secondary, but I'm not sure how good the secondary is going to be, especially against the firepower of Lenore Sellers and the wide receiver crew in South Carolina, who's also returning a star wide receiver. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but 99 speed on NCAA. I know that.
I know what you're talking
All
about.
right, yeah, we can go ahead and jump into
You got a
go ahead
score
and jump into.
prediction?
Sorry, forget. Yeah, score prediction. I'll say 28-17.
Okay.
I think they pull ahead a little bit by a larger margin. I don't think it'll be close to halftime, but I don't think it'll be like 17-14 kind of thing.
Right.
I think it'll be more like 17 or 7-17 at half, and then
Yeah.
Virginia Tech tries to catch up a little bit, and then they ultimately go down. I know Luke speak. Well, we'll just mention Luke because he's pretty excited about this game. He thinks Virginia Tech's going to win. His reasons why, but super fan, I think that he's kind of bought into the hype of the Beamer Bowl. So yeah. So JMU's got an FCS school coming to Bridgeforth, which is season tickets are sold out, but the student tickets are sold out too. We'll see if it's a complete sellout. It'd be pretty impressive to go sell out against the FCS team. Weber State, sorry,
Mm.
Weber State, not Weber State, but they are historically very good. Weber State, when JMU was playing in the FCS, they were typically in the FCS playoffs, but they haven't had that recent success. I think last year just finishing 5-7, 6-6, something like that. Really, the middle of the pack for an FCS school. But they do play some larger schools every once in a while, at least once or twice a year, trying to get that money. But JMU, I think it's got it pretty handled. I think JMU's biggest question is who they're going to start at quarterback.
Yep.
Alonzo Barnett is their in-home quarterback who injured his. I'm not going to say his injury because it's not even confirmed. Something in his knee that takes 9 to 12 months to recover from. And on September 1st, so the day of the game should be when he will be returning. All speculation, of course.
Hey, if it's
So
anything like my college football
yeah.
Barnett going off, so hopefully Ross, his rating in the game is like it is in real life.
Yeah, last year he was on the Heisman watch list for a week
Hmm.
after they put up 70 against UNC. Yeah, he's definitely very good. He was a redshirt sophomore last year. So he had some up and downs, played through some injuries. He was the only quarterback on the roster last year. Sorry, get on my soapbox on defending Alonzo Barnett now. Injured 2 games where they lost, I think, both games to ULM for sure. Was one where he was obviously hurt, I think, just not being able to take off and run like he is. Guy's crazy fast. So yeah, the injury I think kind of prevented him from really stepping up at the end of the year. But once he comes back, I think he'll be much better because he's kind of working through the mental side of the game anyway on the off season, where he had like physical attributes to start with, just kind of like reading coverages, that kind of stuff. Because man, he can shoot the ball, brother. He got
Hmm.
deep throws all day. And with the JMU receiving core last year being pretty, I don't want to say bad, but not the best we've seen. I think Marion Dallison was their best receiver last year by far, which if you only have one person, you're not really going to have like great productivity from, because once they started, he was going off in the first few games, but once they started kind of figuring out, hey, there's only one wide receiver on this team, then, I think Ymir Knight, or sorry, I'm going to get roasted for not knowing the Knight brothers' names, but the wide receiver brother, he was very good for what he was doing. He was 5'9", really small guy. I'm sorry, I'm talking about too much about last year. But I mean, with Weber State, what are you going to talk about, right? They have a lot of good they have a lot of good wide receiver transfers, two coming in from Richmond, Ellis and DeGennaro. They're going to be lightening up, I think, as well as I believe his last name is Austin. Anyway, 6'4" receiver from Iowa State, one of those schools. Really had most of his productivity from Army. Just deep ball guy, 6'4", huge. He's probably going to be on that wide receiver spot. Just hopefully they can have some sort of passing attack with Matt Sluka, which I believe is going to be the starter, which everybody believes is going to be the starter. They also have the quarterback from Richmond, who is going to be an absolute legend as well. I don't want to say everybody's gonna be a legend, but they're just really high on him too, coming in as a junior. So maybe redshirt season this year, depends on how it all runs with quarterback room, with Alonzo Barnett being out, definitely for week one at least. But and then Max Sluka, he all-time runner, right? Just running power, quarterback power all day, get 8 yards, 10 yards, whatever. He's a deep ball guy too, right? So if he's not running, he's throwing it deep, which is probably a good sign with the 6'4" kind of jump ball guy. So that's kind of where his passer completion is, and it's like 45% at UNLV last year. I believe it's like 55, 60 throughout his whole career as a college quarterback. So not the most accurate guy is his knock, but he was also the top group of five, or he was one of the top transfers last year going to UNLV. That's where he was promised all that money and didn't get it. So he redshirted that year.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, he's going to be running all over Weber State and ideally Louisville as well, because he also has maybe, I know for sure, two Power Four wins, maybe three at UNLV last year, which also I think is kind of dipping those numbers. Didn't play a lot of group of five people last year, mostly Power Four schools when they were beating up on some P4 teams last year at UNLV too. Defense is going to be stacked, got a lot of really great transfers, FCS guys, replacing some production on the D line, but also have some returning guys, rotational guys from last year. So a lot of depth returning, whereas like some of the starters may not be. I think it was 7 total returning starters with the rotational guys. I don't really see too much of a drop off. The biggest question mark I have for JMU is going to be the cornerback position. They have a couple of cornerbacks coming in from FCS schools, just really kind of trying to upgrade, but in transfer portal give and take. So not sure how productive they will be. I think everybody's pretty high on them, but we'll have to play the game to find out, you know. Go ahead, Zach. Sorry, I kind of rambled there.
No, you're good. No, you can go ahead with just in terms of the game. I mean, you kind of just laid it all out there for like what JMU
Yeah,
is
my
bringing
bad.
in, coming back. Like I could have went off on UVA, I guess, too, about our holes, what we have going for us, our transfers. But no, that was good. But in terms of week one, specifically the matchup, obviously it's Weber State. We're not gonna sit here and talk about matchups or whatever. I mean, I think JMU has that one in the bags. But what do you think in terms of? Let me pull up the spread real quick. At least see.
Yeah, it spreads 25.5.
Oh, damn.
So,
Okay, I think they're definitely gonna
yeah,
cover that.
yeah, I think they're going to cover as well. I think it'll be like a 67 beat down. I think the emphasis all year, or the emphasis this year, is going to be finishing games, losing some one-score games last year. Actually, I'm so sorry. Losing by leading by double digits in three of their last 4 games last year.
Hmm.
They're going to come back and just gas pedal all the way. So yeah, I think they sweep Weber State pretty bad.
You're saying 67?
60-7, yeah.
I like that. I was back in the playoff days. I remember we'd have round one games at Bridgeforth. It didn't matter who they were playing. The score was literally like 70-7 or like 60-3. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's a cakewalk. I think 25.5 is honestly a little disrespectful. So yeah, I say 55-14 just because if Barrett's not playing, you got to have another quarterback. Maybe you don't get that extra touchdown to get the 60, whatever. But no, I think it's a walk in the park for JMU. Yeah, hopefully they get a big time play out of the quarterback position week one to kind of have an identity going forward in case Barrett isn't 100% the whole year.
Yeah, you want to jump into some schedule previews? We can just continue on JMU and then go back through JMU, Virginia Tech, UVA.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Um,
just for time reasons, like we don't have to do it game by game, but I was
no.
thinking we could do a best case scenario, worst case, and then our individual predictions for all three teams. And then at the end, we'll close out with our upset of the week pick, which something we want to do every week. Pick any team, preferably a top 25 team, but if it's not that big of a deal. But an underdog, somebody you think has the upset, or it doesn't have to be an outright win. It could just be somebody covering the spread. That's a pretty heavy underdog. So we'll do that to end. But yeah, let's go ahead. Since we're already on JMU, you can start best case, worst case, and your prediction.
Yeah, I think best case, looking at sweeping the table with the biggest challenge coming at Louisville. JMU does have a tough schedule this year,
Hmm.
but they will be favored in 11 of their games. Yeah, so they'll be favored in 11 of 12 of their games. So really, it just kind of depends on whether Louisville is a win or a loss. I think so. Best case scenario, they sweep everybody. So we'll see how it kind of bends out. But yeah, worst case scenario, I think it's going to be probably like another 9-4 season. I think that would probably be like the absolute worst case scenario for JMU fans. And it's really going to be a boom or a bust kind of year for them. Either the coach is going to get poached or fired, I think. So,
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, he's a very good recruiter. I love Bob Chesney. Every time I hear him talk, it fires me up. So,
He's also super
really good
young,
motivator, I
so
think.
he has a long way to go, a long way to grow.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And his offensive coordinator it's his second year coming into this or being an offensive coordinator. So I think there's going to be a big jump from year one to year two as the OC. You want to go ahead and go ahead for JMU prediction?
Well, so you're saying 9-3 is worst case,
Yeah, yeah.
and then what's your actual prediction? So you're saying 12-0 best case, nine
Oh,
and three
sorry.
worst.
Yep.
I assume you
I
got them
think
there in the middle, 10-2.
yeah, I think I think it's going to be 11-1. I don't actually think they get by Louisville, but I think they trip up against it's either going to be Georgia Southern, not Georgia State, excuse me, Georgia Southern or Louisville. Those are two of the best teams in the Sun Belt. Georgia Southern is behind JMU in the preseason rankings, and Louisville is picked to win the Sun Belt West. So I think it's going to be Georgia Southern, but Georgia Southern and Louisiana come to Bridgeport to play. So it might home field advantage for any college football game is a big factor. So yeah, but one of those games, I think that's where they trip up. I think they do beat Louisville. I think just kind of like the juice is going to be there, and coming off the FCS game, I think we'll be all right. And you could also pick Liberty, but coming off of, I think they get by Liberty too.
All right, damn. So you got 11-1, and honestly, if they go 11-1 with a win over Louisville, they're right there on the edge. Probably like a top 18, top 20 team in the college football playoff standing. So that'll be interesting. But damn, if they beat Louisville and then lose to somebody else, I'd be so pissed. That'd be crazy. But yeah, so I'll go best case scenario. I think 11-1. I just think there's no way. I mean, people listening might be like, damn, it's crazy that somebody could ever predict JMU to beat Louisville on the road. But it's like, if you look at JMU's history, they play out of conference teams extremely well. I mean, they beat, not that UVA is on the, or UNC last year is on the level of Louisville, but they beat UVA at UVA 3 years ago. Last year, put up 70 on UNC, even though it was a really bad UNC team. It's still impressive to be able to do that. And so I don't see why JMU can't compete on the road at Louisville this year. But I do think Louisville being one of the better teams in the ACC, they're borderline top 25 football team. And I think they have a great coach, great quarterback. I think that'll just be too much for JMU, especially on the road. So I don't see them having a chance in that one, even though I think they could keep it close. So yeah, I'll say best case 11-1, they just slip up at Louisville. And then worst case, just skimming the schedule right now, I'm outside of Louisville. The only other two games that give me a little worry would be App and then at Coastal to end the year. If Coastal is talent from the transfer portal and if their quarterback situation goes well, their stadium, their fans get rowdy. So being like senior night down in Myrtle, it's the last game of the regular season. I think that could be tough. And then App State's always tough. So I think worst case scenario, 9-3, lose to Louisville and then slip up at either App, Coastal, or maybe a Louisiana. But yeah, I don't see them losing more than 3 games. So my prediction, I'll say 10-2. I think they lose to Louisville and then they slip up somewhere between Louisiana, App, Coastal, and I don't want to breeze over Washington State too much. They lost their coach. A ton of fucking talent left that program because they've actually been decent the past 3, 4 years. It's a bigger school. They still have a little bit of talent left over. I would completely rule out a game there, but I think JMU should be favored in that one. But yeah, rambled there a little bit, but I would say 10-2 for JMU, which I think would be an improvement over last season and nothing to write home about.
Yeah, I will say App lost their head coach
Hmm.
and kind of, but at the same time, I don't know why, but App's got JMU's number. So
Yeah.
yeah, I could definitely agree with that. I think maybe they overlooked that game for sure this year, but I don't see them overlooking that because they've been very close game every year. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into Virginia Tech. We'll try to really run through that one because obviously Virginia Tech guy's not here. So I think best case scenario, they're looking at 8-4 this year. I think that's really absolute best case scenario to me. And then worst case scenario is the dreaded 5-6 or 5-7.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I think they'll finish right where they've been the last 5 years, 6-6. Do they win their bowl game? We don't know. But so it's either 6-6 or 6-7. So yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think my records are the exact same. Best case scenario, 8-4. Getting to 8-4, it's going to take a beating an SEC school like Vanderbilt, who they lost to last year, and having some upsets on the road against the likes of NC State, Georgia Tech, even a home game against Louisville. They play Florida State on the road late in the year, and then sorry, Hokie fans, but at UVA this year is actually going to be your first tough game against them in a long time. So yeah, they don't have the easiest schedule in my opinion. And I think 8-4 would be a very successful year for Brent Pry. And if I was a Hokie fan, I would take that right now. And then worst case scenario, I also agree 5-7 is about accurate. I don't see them being any worse just because I don't think their team is any close to being as bad as it was last year. I think that they filled some holes well in the portal. And according to a lot of Hokies, they do actually think, Homer people aside, that the offense and defense coordinators are upgrades. So we'll see about that. But I can't. There's no way in hell Virginia Tech goes 4-8. So yeah, 5-7 worst case. And then my prediction, I'll go on the optimist side. Hate to do it because I hate them, but I'll say 7-5 is my prediction. I think they'll have an upset here or there. Like I do see them beating Vanderbilt at home, especially after losing an OT last year. I think they can go on the road at NC State and potentially get a win. So those are two games right there that they'll most likely be underdogs and come away with a win, as well as at home against Louisville. I think they can put up a good fight there in Lane Stadium. So yeah, 7-5 is my prediction for them.
Yeah, I mean, going off that, I think, yeah, I mean, usually their competition for if it's 5-7, 6-6 is the UVA game.
Mm.
So I think it just depends on that, really, to me. But you're right. Maybe I think people are bullish on the team. I don't know why, but they started in the off season about doom and gloom, like we're not going to be good at all. And then now I think for real, since like ACC media days is like when everybody started like picking it back up again and was like, oh, maybe there's hope, So we'll see.
Yeah, it's
But
funny.
yeah,
It's the constant
maybe the
cycle. It's like UVA and Virginia Tech are so opposite of fan bases. Like UVA fans are the most negative Nancy people of all time. Like just look reading our message boards for the past like decade, honestly. Like it's just a joke. Like we don't expect anything from our team or our coaching staff. And you go look at Virginia Tech, and it's like they think they're going to compete for a playoff every single year. So, but I mean, I laugh about it, but I mean, there's something to having some optimism and some hope. But yeah, if they go like 7-5 and the fan base is pissed, then that's a problem. That would be improvement over last year and show that at least Pry is not a bad coach and they're on the right path. So they shouldn't be mad about that. But 7-5 with a loss over UVA, then yeah, you can fire your coach if you want. I get it. Yeah, I can. So yeah, just quickly recapping like why there's any optimism around this dreadful program. I mean, let's just look at it from the perspective of the coaching staff. So Tony Elliott comes in after Bronco resigned. Bronco had us in a good spot, brought us to the Orange Bowl in 2019. Last time we beat Virginia Tech, our rival, and then we were bowl eligible 3 straight years in a row. And then COVID hit, and obviously it hit everybody, so it's not an excuse, but just the way Bronco coached, it really put a dent on the program in terms of talent acquisition and depth standpoint. We lost a lot of people after COVID. Some retired from college football and some just left and didn't like the way Bronco handled the COVID season. And so, yeah, we struggled and then Bronco resigns. And so what we thought our floor going into 2022 football season, we thought our floor was 6-6 again, which is what we always hoped for as UVA fans. And then it turns out Bronco leaves, Tony Elliott comes in. There's a lot of optimism. He had won national championship as an offense coordinator at Clemson. He had won best offense coordinator of the year 1 year during that Clemson run. So there's a lot of hype. He comes in and immediately we're bad again. We went 3-7 his first year, and it's like, oh, there we go. We had a little bit of taste of success, and now we're back at the bottom. And it made us miss Bronco. But to Tony's fairness, he came in and completely wanted to rebuild the program his way. So he kind of just carved his own, I don't know how to put it, his own way of rebuilding. Cut ties with a lot of players, a lot of people, and wanted to start fresh. And so slowly but surely, we went 3-7 his first year. Next year went 3-9, and the team is completely talentless. No depth in the offensive line. And at one point, we had 7 scholarship offensive line players in 2023, which is like, how the hell can you compete with anybody? And then last year, I would still think a very limited roster. We went 5-7, but it could have easily been 7-5. I mean, we had leads in the fourth quarter against Louisville and who else? I'm blanking right now. But there was 3 games, or Maryland, excuse me, Maryland, Louisville, 2 games could have gone our way. I mean, so we were a coin flip from 7-5 last year, and that's with all the deficiencies. And then going into this season, we finally have some momentum, and we have a high school recruiting class we're really excited about. A lot of true freshmen will be playing this year that have really stood out in fall camps so far. And then a top 25 ranked transfer portal class led by Chandler Morris, quarterback, transferred from TCU, then to North Texas, and here he's a 30 touchdown type of quarterback. He's got speed, and we think he's really going to take command of the offense. And so, yeah, you add that with a bunch of high-level transfer guys from places like the SEC and Big Ten. We think that this is the most talent UVA's had probably since Mike London, 2011, 2012 years. So it's been quite some time. And so with that momentum and what's labeled as the easiest schedule in the ACC and most of college football, we think that we have a chance to be successful this year. So with that said, best case scenario, I'm going to say 8-4. And it's funny just thinking about it. my records, they're all going to be like right next to each other. Like we're a coin flip away from being 6-6 and a coin flip away from 8-4. Like it just depends on injuries, if we can stay healthy, blah blah blah. So it kind of just spoiled my records. But yeah, best case scenario 8-4, worst case scenario 6-6. I think just given our schedule, there's just no way that we went 5-7 last year, played three teams in the college football playoff, and still was one game away from a bowl. And then this year have the easiest schedule in college football. There's nobody on our schedule that seems to even sniff a playoff. There's just no way in hell we go 5-7. So, and if we do, we're firing the whole staff and starting fresh. So yeah, worst case scenario 6-6, and then my predictions will be right in the middle, 7-5. For a while in this offseason, with all the hope and hype from the transfer portal, from the winter and the spring portal, was really hype. My prediction forever was 8-4, and then basically in like the last week or two, I'll drop that down to 7-5, just because we've had some tough injuries in fall camp. We lost our starting left tackle in the spring. We knew that. But then we lost our starting right tackle 2 weeks ago to a season-ending injury. We brought in like seven cornerbacks in the portal. Three of them are done for the year already and won't play. So we've already been struck with injuries. So if any more severe injuries happen, we're going to have a problem. And so I don't trust us staying healthy. So that's why 7-5. And then also to add to that, like Austin said, going over the Virginia Tech schedule, it really just comes down to, and Virginia Tech are usually like 5-6, 6-5, really average teams going into that last game. And then the winner, which is 99% of the time, Tech ends up getting that sixth or seventh win. And so this year, I think it's the same. I think if we can go into that Tech game 7-4, that's like my biggest goal for the year. And then whatever happens in that game happens. You know, if we prove that we're the better team, then we deserve to be 8-4. That's my hope. But I can't take that. I can't make that prediction. I have to see it to believe it. I don't trust that we can go toe to toe with Tech yet, just from a mindset standpoint, even though I think we finally have the bodies to be able to do it. So yeah, sorry that was long-winded, but I'm gonna say 7-5. Same as Virginia Tech.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with everything, right? So like the best odds probably 8-4, the win total with Virginia Tech being like the deciding factor. I mean, this is a crazy easy schedule. I did not realize how easy Virginia
Yeah.
UVA's schedule was. I mean, Wake Forest, like you play the bottom of the ACC.
Yep. And none of the top.
The only challenge, yeah, the only challenge is going to be like Duke, Louisville, Florida State. Everything else should be, honestly, I think should be a win, especially with the transfer class, like you mentioned. The worry is the depth, I think. I'm sure is for you too, is like later in the year.
Yep.
So yeah, maybe realistically 7-5, just because at the end of the year you got Duke and UVA is maybe where you
Virginia
squeak,
Tech.
where you
Yeah.
get by, yeah, where you get by like Florida State and maybe I think Louisville is gonna be pretty good, but yeah, maybe you get by Florida State and UNC early, and then lose the Duke Virginia Tech game. Anyway, but yeah, I think that'd be my prediction. I think that's like also like the kind of the floor too. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like who are you gonna lose to? Wake Forest? I'd be shocked, especially with the transfer class you guys brought in. I will say Coastal Carolina I think is gonna be a tougher game than you might think. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, that's how easy the schedule is, right? Like Coastal Carolina is like one of your tougher opponents in the first 6 weeks of the season.
Yeah. The thing is,
Um,
like, according to the media, in terms of point spreads and win totals, we're going to be underdogs in NC State game, Florida State, Louisville, Carolina, Cal is a toss-up, and Duke, and then Virginia Tech's a toss-up. So I guess I'll put the toss-ups down. So, like, we're predicted to lose 5 games, and that's without even getting into toss-ups. So it's like the media thinks we could easily go 5-7. And if anything, they're kind of putting money towards it. I think our opening win total came out at 6.5. And I was like telling my dad, like, we got to put $1 million on the over. I mean, I'm sorry, but like, this is like the easiest because like nobody, and you said it earlier too, it's like UVA, like anybody that like wouldn't dig into UVA or understand, they're just like, why would they be any different? Like, they're predicted to be at the bottom of the ACC. Like, what's like, and I get that. Like, they haven't proved anything. And so I get why some of these games are like, there's no chance. But it's like, I think we should be favorites at Carolina. I mean, I don't buy the Bill Belichick bullshit. That's a whole nother story. And then also
no,
NC State, they lost a ton last year. We gained a ton. I think we're a better
yeah, agreed.
roster and have continuity on the coaching staff. I think we should be favored in that game. So there's just a lot of stuff people don't really see behind the scenes about a lot of these ACC schools.
Yeah, I think like national media, it's really like you think power forwards like oh, you're gonna have like national media coverage. Whereas
Hmm.
like that's probably not even the case if you're not the SEC or Big Ten anymore. And even really, well, you see you see Kentucky on there a lot more than you see UVA, right?
Yeah,
Even though they've had similar success in their conferences, and Kentucky's just been historically like really bad, like losing to Group of Five teams. I'm not saying UVA hasn't, but yeah, it's just insane, especially just the drop off of like if you're not like an ACC fan or listening to like regional stuff, then you wouldn't know anything about
exactly.
UVA, most likely Virginia, maybe a little bit more Virginia Tech after last year, but they probably don't know much coming in. Anyway, let's go ahead and wrap that segment up. You want to go ahead and start off with your with the next segment? I think just because like you had brought it up, so
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, so at the end of all of our episodes, we want to pick a fun underdog, something our predictions. And I think eventually we might get into a little bit of betting. Like we got to figure out our process here, but it would be fun to do like pick 5 games a week that you feel really, really strongly about in terms of betting the covers. And I mean, we could pick whatever you want in terms of that. But yeah, so week one, looking at the top 25s, the schedule for the top 25 an opening weekend. Honestly, nothing, usually stuff jumps out at me. So I like jump into some of the ESPN fantasy apps during the college football season. Sometimes I'll put money on them if I feel really confident, but I always just bet every game that the games give you. So normally they'll give you like 20 games and you bet the spreads or you can put in order like how confident you are on them. And then at the end of every season, compile my percentages to see how accurate I was. I think last year, total betting point spreads, I think my success rate was like 62.5%, like not great, but still winning, still up. So I want to improve on that this year. But in terms of week one, just picking one game, the only thing that kind of jumps out at me is the spread of Alabama and Florida State. So Alabama, eighth ranked team in the country, goes to Tallahassee. Bama's 13.5 point favorites. And I think most people would be like, Bama's just gonna fucking blow them out. It's not gonna be close. But I'm a huge Mike Norvell fan, and if there's any time to buy Florida State stock, it's now. I don't think it's ever been this low in the history of their program. Going 2-10 last year was obviously super disappointing, but I honestly think a lot of that is to blame on some misses in the transfer portal, and then obviously the quarterback play from DJU was horrific, and that can easily tank your season. And then also it's a snowball effect. It's like once you're a top 10 team, you have high expectations to make the playoff, even the national championship game, and then you lose 4 or 5 in a row. These are young kids. Like it's easily for your mental to quit, to strain. And I think they kind of just gave up. And obviously that's also a testament to the coaching staff, but I do think Mike Norvell is the guy to recover. So anyways, long-winded answer. Basically, I have a little bit of stock in Florida State this year. I don't think they're going to compete with Clemson for the ACC title or anything, but I do think they're going to improve a lot and be a really tough 7-8 win football team. So, with that being the prelude, I think they will cover the spread. I think Alabama is going to struggle with their new quarterback. There's also a lot of heat on DeBoer, and I think Bama might come out of the gates, especially on the road. I mean, if this was in Tuscaloosa, I might have a different feeling, but initial feeling is Bama comes out really slow to start, especially offensively. And I think Florida State's going to be pretty amped to turn around what happened last year. And they got DJ Castellano as quarterback from Boston College. I think he's legit and a huge improvement over DJU. And so I think Florida State's going to compete. So I have them covering that spread. I think they lose by 10, 7, 10. But I think people would be really surprised if they cover the 13.5, 14-point spread.
So I'm gonna go in the opposite direction and do like a Group of Five kind of thing.
Perfect. Yeah, sure.
As far as so I got Georgia Southern going to Fresno State. Fresno State is the favorite by 2 points. I think Georgia Southern is going to be a very good team this year, and I think they beat them by a touchdown at least.
I totally buy that.
I agree. Fresno State is a very good team, like a lot of tradition there too. But Georgia Southern just has so much returning production from last year. And if you don't know much about like the Sun Belt, then you might overlook Georgia Southern because obviously not like a national media, national brand, and
Didn't
they
they
really
compete
haven't
with
been very
Bama
good.
last year?
Who Fresno State?
No, Georgia Southern. I swear it was somebody. I
They
wasn't
they
Bama.
competed with Boise State. I think they lost by like a touchdown or something.
Yeah, but yeah, they play bigger opponents tough.
Oh yeah, yeah. And Fresno State's Group of Five too, but is at home at Fresno. But I just don't think I'm not sure about what kind of West Coast attendance there is in the stadiums and stuff. But I can't imagine that being like a huge home field advantage for them. Not not that Georgia Southern's gonna travel well, but to across the country. But they are going to be there for like 2 weeks before, or they're making a huge trip out of it because they do play USC the next week. Georgia Southern does. So
See, that's the game you
I
should
think
be
it's more
putting
like
your upset on.
yeah, I'd
Because
have
that
to look
spread's
more
probably
into
going to be like
USC.
28, 30.
Pretty high.
And
Really?
I would
No
guarantee
way.
Georgia Southern covers that.
Oh
Or even
yeah.
if it's like
If
22 or like
if
23, I think they'll cover.
if that's a spread for sure.
But
Yeah,
we'll obviously get into that
that'll be a
week
much
2.
closer game.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, right. You're right. Anyway, but yeah, I think they win. Maybe not handily, but I think at least by 7, if
Yeah.
not 14.
No, I definitely see that.
All right. Well, I think that's where we're gonna end it off. It's been a good podcast. It's been about an hour and a half, so I think that's all the podcasting I can do for the day anyway. So,
Yep.
Jack, you have anything else?
No, I think that's it. Looking forward to the next one for week 2. See how our predictions turned out.
Actually, let's end it on a fun question. Actually,
Alrighty.
what is your huh?
I said alrighty, let's do it.
Oh, what is your favorite part of the tailgates at UVA? So, like, what are you most looking forward to?
So, my favorite part, well, it's funny. UVA has this whole, what do you call it? The whole world makes fun of them. We're the typical wine and cheese crowd. It's not your typical game day experience in like Blacksburg, even JMU, and definitely not like SEC tailgates. But it's still a fun experience, like being in the West lot right next to the stadium. Everybody's got their tents up, and my favorite part is just like everybody's so close together. It's very communal and everybody's like drinking each other's alcohol, stealing each other's food. Everybody just like comes as one. Everybody's like super nice and stuff. So it's very casual, but it's always great drinking and getting ready for a loss every week. That's the UVA way. So no, yeah, it's just fun being with family, friends, and drinking Zima like a UVA fan should.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I was pretty surprised on the tailgating scene when I came up there for the JMU game, especially on that lot. We didn't know anything about it, and we just kind of got like there at the end of the tailgating. So, and I just missed you. But
Hmm.
yeah, so we go to my family, friends. We all rent a house together for homecoming weekend at JMU, which is going to be October 18th, I think. So just 2 months away. My dad got a pizza oven last year.
Oh, hell
That
yeah.
was
That's
pretty
awesome.
funny. Yeah, yeah. You come on now.
Absolutely.
I don't know what the schedules are looking like, but Luke goes every year too, so it's a good time. But yeah, that's definitely my favorite portion of tailgating is just kind of like the food, family and friends, of
Hmm.
course. But just the walk to the stadium is awesome in October. That's underrated, I think, is my favorite part because
I don't
just like super
understand that.
drunk and just like
If you haven't been to a
going
JMU
crazy.
game or like tailgating there, it's just like unique. There's like a certain lot you can park in. Then you walk to the stadium, you walk under a tunnel. Everybody's drunk and rowdy. It's like a 10, 12-minute walk. And like, no, that's like a great experience. I totally agree.
Yeah, the tunnel's crazy. Yeah, yeah. If you park in Convo, that's where we're gonna be
Convo, yeah, that's
tailgating.
like where I like to tailgate.
On Weber State. Yeah, that's what we'll be for Weber State. So,
Nice.
but we're driving the old motorcycles up, so I don't think we're gonna, no tents and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
and of course, game day is a big one for JMU fans. So the last game day was insane.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
but yeah, all right. Well, I appreciate you humoring my tailgating question. We'll come up with something else next week, but it was awesome to talk to you, man. And I'll talk to you next week.
Yes, sir. Let's do it later.